Hi, welcome to 108 Healing Senses podcast. My name is Jennifer Taylor, and today I'm so happy to invite Bob Stewart onto my podcast today. And he's a lovely soul. I met him, what was it, a year or two ago? Yeah,
Yeah,
2 years ago at a festival, and you gave me a really profound tarot reading, and I still have your amethyst crystal. Um,
fantastic.
yeah,
I like.
but
Well,
I'll hand
thank you.
it to you.
Thank you for inviting me onto your podcast, Jennifer. I've watched a few and I'm very pleased to see that you're taking this forward. If you want to know a little about me, I've been reading tarot for over 30 years, teaching tarot for about 20, just finishing off a book, uh, tarot as a profession, but it can be bought in segments as mini ebooks. Um, we'll be doing online courses. Reiki practitioner. Um, I don't do Reiki. I have no focus on Reiki, but it is present when I'm doing my readings,
Mm,
um, which I'll explain why that is when we get further into the conversation.
mm. Okay, that's interesting. And what I suppose, do you have a signature type of person that tends to see you, or are there certain I suppose issues or challenges that people come to you for your guidance on?
I'm just going to turn the volume up. Yeah, I have a website and people can book me through the website. I read on Hastings Pier. I'm based on the East Coast, East Sussex, South Coast, which is fun. I enjoy being on the pier. It's
Mm,
just beautiful hearing the ocean beneath. It's such a beautiful place to be. I
mm,
love it. Even when I'm not working, it's just,
mm,
yeah, I have to be by the sea. Um, I do email readings, phone readings, video readings, in-person readings, and I've been organizing something called the Inner Compass, which is pulling together different practitioners in the area and trying to draw more attention to the types of practitioners that are available in the area.
nice.
Most of the practitioners I know are fabulous practitioners, but terrible business people. It's just the nature of the beast, you know. They come from this heart-centered space and want to heal and help and support, but not very good at business. This I've discovered. So
Yeah,
I'm sort of acting as a bit of a catalyst to pull people together. Um, it's usually the last Thursday of every month. We'll resurrect again, probably at the end of next month. But that information will be available on the website. Um, my, my style of reading is a little different than other readers in as much as I, I don't want to hear what the person's questions are. And the reason I do this is because as human beings, we're in two modes of operation, trying to look good and avoiding looking bad.
mm,
And oftentimes practitioners, readers, healers will fall into the trap of becoming the rescuer. And it comes from a good place, I get it, but there's a fundamental flaw in that. And
mm,
for me, it's the everybody who sits in front of you is bright, powerful, and beautiful. It may be they're just choosing not to be at this moment in time. And if every practitioner can view the person in front of them as an equal soul, an equal spirit, with divine right to choose the position they're currently in,
mm,
um, I think they'll get a much better outcome in terms of working with a client who may be afraid of being well, for example. Maybe the illness or the trauma is serving some kind of purpose.
mm,
And this is where the psychology of being a reading being a reader is important. I deliberately undertook a counseling course. I'm a trained counselor because I was reading tarot. And what I found was that I felt a real responsibility to make sure that whoever sat in front of me left at least the same as they came in, never worse.
Yes.
Never, ever worse. Because the people who sit in front of you are teachers as well as students. If we can see that also, that perhaps they brought something to teach the reader or the healer. So the way I read is I never want to hear the question. I always start with a broad, I call it it's the current energies. What are the current? That's why I'm called current energies. Because our energetic patterns is constantly in flux and flowing and changing and upgrading and down. So depending who we meet, we might have a higher vibration, feeling fantastic. Other people may bring us down. So whatever the current energies are around an individual at any one time, I start with that as a foundation for my reading, which is the current energy around the emotional landscape, the physical material, and spiritual. And I always caveat the word spiritual with whatever that means to the person in front of you. It's not my definition. I have my definition, but whatever that means, it's the unseen. It's the guides, angels, the loved ones that have passed. It's the higher self, soul family, all of the above. And then I do a ripple of about 3 weeks to see how those energies are likely to unfold. And it's just like when you ring a bell, you hit it, that's the current vibration, but that will ring until it dissipates. And it takes time. So energetically, whatever we're holding emotionally, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, physically, will ripple out over time, either in a positive way or maybe in a challenging way. Yeah. So I do a ripple, I call it the ripple of about 3 weeks. And then we begin a reading of, I always encourage people to interrogate the cards. Because I want them to be empowered. I want them to be demanding. I want answers. I want assistance. I want help. And again, I find part of my role is to remind people of how powerful, bright, and beautiful they are. And sometimes that's a challenge because of how a person presents. They'll present as being less than because they perceive the structure of the universe, the structure of society. Perhaps it's been the society that's put that person down to such a way that they actually believe it's true. So I informed them that I don't want to hear the question, and the primary reason behind that is because we want to look good and we want to avoid looking bad. And if a person hears the question, they might subconsciously be trying to give the person what they want to hear, as opposed to the message that the cards are offering. And it's a trap that a lot of readers do fall into. I had a shop in Greenwich and I had a little room at the back and I would rent that out to other readers. And sometimes I would see the client come and I would hear them tell the client what they should do and what they must do. I think that's not your business. Yeah. Your business is to give guidance. If you approach this way, you might get this outcome. If you adopt this strategy, this may happen, but it's your choice. It's got to always be the client's. They've got to empower, because what they do by doing this is there's something called transference in counseling, which if a person comes in and the reader or the healer is adopting an authoritative tone, because they're taking charge, they're controlling the session, the client can sometimes fall into child. So we've got this dynamic of child adult. You know, it's a common thing that happens in a one-to-one scenario when people are being guided and instructed.
Yeah.
So it's important to recognize the type of language you use. And again, this is where my fascination with beliefs, because I suggested to you that I'd like to talk about beliefs and what they are and what they mean to people. I concluded, because I tried to have no beliefs. I tried it. I just said, right, I'm going to have no beliefs, but then that was a belief in itself. So what I determined is the human being cannot function. The ego cannot function without a belief to work towards, to work within. And so I've decided that my beliefs will be fluid. So I'm not going to be a religious fanatic. I'm not going to be a political fanatic. I'm not going to be any kind of fanatic, because that means the belief owns you. You don't hold the belief holds you, and you give yourself to that. So I've adopted this fluid belief system whereby because I'm hungry for knowledge, I'm hungry to learn. I want to know what makes you tick, what gives you joy, what gives you bliss. I'm keen to know this about people so that I can adopt some of those ideas and practices myself. So I've tried various things like meditation. I thought, I can't, I'm a fidgeter. So my meditation is walking along the seafront. I feel so calm and it's so relaxing. And I've done the breathing exercises, the sound baths. I've dipped my toe in a load of things to see what will generate a calmness in me and a peace within me and a unification with my mind, my heart, my spirit. So my fluid belief systems are that I believe everything is possible. So if somebody comes to me and says UFOs are real, I say, okay, that's a real possibility. That's a possibility. I'm not going to discard it because I haven't seen one. I do believe I took a photograph of one unintentionally. And somebody said, no, it was a seagull. But I don't dismiss somebody's belief. I just inquire. I'm interested why they hold a belief. And some people's beliefs are based on hope, because hope is a very useful tool. It should never be discarded.
It does. Hope does need additional things like action and trust in order for something to just go from a place of, it's sort of just etherical, nothing, it hasn't formed, it hasn't wielded itself and yielded and it transformed into something. So hope for an external or an internal. You just you're living it. You're living that truth.
Yes, it's quite closely related to this idea of manifestation. I'm thinking, okay, that's good. You're focusing in intention, but what are you doing? What steps are you taking? So being hopeful and optimistic about achieving a goal or something may happen the way you would like it to happen has to have some strategy in place, a roadmap of some description. I'm going to get up and make my bed. I'm going to go out and bump into somebody in town, or there has to be some action. If you think you're going to sit in your room and manifest your luxury villa with swimming pool in the car and the partner of your dreams by sitting and praying, I think the chances are going to be very slim. However, having that vision and being in a state of faith, having faith that first of all, you're worthy and you're deserving. Now, this is where it gets a bit complicated because of how we are as human beings, because the subconscious or the unconscious plays an incredible part in how we be on a day-to-day basis. So that the idea of persona, the mask, the present, the person we are presenting with. For example, you and I are here, and I'm presenting as the interviewee, and you're presenting as but we might have stuff going on in the back of our head. I've got scaffolding coming this afternoon. I hope that turns up on time. There's all sorts of stuff going on, but this persona that we present is a small portion. And it goes back to that notion of trying to look good and avoiding looking bad. And I invite your audience to try it for one afternoon, particularly when you're out and about, doing your shopping or going to the post office, whatever it is. Observe yourself in every interaction. It have to be interaction, or even if you're just walking along, because you might check yourself in the mirror just to, because we don't want to look bad, right? And it's a lovely little game to play, and it has to be done lightheartedly, because once you start being the observer of you, you're moving closer to the unification of all that you are. And that's the conscious, subconscious, superconscious, or so I went off on a tangent then. So beliefs are incredibly important. And I'll do this, by the way, I'll go off on a tangent and you have to pull me back in. So
stay in the pink palace.
When a person has a certain set of beliefs, for example, if it's a subconscious belief that they deserve to be punished, they feel guilty about something that they can't remember, some trauma, but they carry guilt. I'm a big fan of tapping as a energetic release system, because we store trauma. And it's not always in the memory. It can be in the subconscious, because trauma is usually buried. And so we get, people get triggered by the color purple, or the fear of water. Phobias are fascinating, because is that past life? Is that, if somebody was a child and put into a bath and went under, didn't drown, but perhaps they might grow up with a fear of water, but never remember that incident. And so you would need some form of tapping therapy to try and draw that reaction, that belief that water is dangerous. And again, this is when a belief holds somebody. People don't hold the belief. The belief holds them.
Yeah.
So understanding our beliefs and listening to other people's points of view, active listening. Oftentimes, we come to a meeting, or we're going to talk to someone, and we have an idea of what we want, because this is what the outcome is that I would like. We can sometimes come in with our beliefs, and they become rigid. We don't want to budge them. So active listening is everything's compromised. All relationships are compromised. A good personal relationship is based on compromise. And it's the idea of being an active listener. You have to have your boundaries. They're crucial. Boundaries do not have to be fixed, same as beliefs. They can be fluid, because your boundary is based on your fear or your desire. So if you set a boundary because you desire X or you fear Y, and so you want to keep people at a distance, or you want to hear that kind of language, whatever it is, that's why we set boundaries. And the closer we get to the inner peace, where fear dissipates, and disappears, it means you can hear anything.
Mm.
And your boundaries become almost unnecessary because you're so much in your power, because you've accepted that you're bright, powerful, and beautiful.
Mm.
And when we get to that point, and it's got nothing to do with vanity, knowing what a beautiful thing the human body is. I have friends who have a very bad relationship with their body. And it's almost a self-defeating position to take, because thoughts create things in the body. You know, worry can create ulcers. That's magical. You know, thoughts can, hang on, what's this? Zoom quit unexpectedly.
We're still recording.
Hello, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
I've frozen, but I'm going to carry on as if I haven't frozen. I think you've frozen as well. Can you move?
You're still moving.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to carry on, but the both of our videos are frozen. But it's good if you'll just let me know if you can still hear me.
It might be.
Was I? Lost the thread. That
it was
warning came up.
It was about boundaries and about desire or fear for boundaries, and then when you get to the point,
yes, fluid boundaries, and being when we find that sense of unification of the wounded child, or addressing the traumas, or the shadow within, as Jung would describe it. And people are afraid of their shadow, which is unfortunate, because the shadow is a teacher. Yeah. The shadow isn't something separate. It's part of who we are from a psychological point of view. So again, it just advice to any readers, anybody who wants to do readings, and be a spiritual counselor, in my opinion, should put themselves onto an introduction to counseling course, just to give themselves a bit of a foundation on how to deliver messages in a constructive, positive way. So yeah, the idea of beliefs and the notion of being aware of a subconscious or the unconscious, and how that has an effect on how we perform, how we be towards others, in terms of our persona, how we present. There was a quote by Carl Jung, which is, "My life is a story of the self-realization of the unconscious. Everything in the unconscious seeks outward manifestation. The personality also desires to evolve out of its unconscious." So when we have dreams, when we have prophetic dreams, or we have those dreams that people call nightmares, something frightening, perhaps there's a job interview in the next day, and you have a terrible dream of being chased or falling down a well, or whatever it is. Again, this is the wonderful world of the subconscious and the shadow aspect of who we are. It's spiritual. I love the fact that there's so much happening now with regards to podcasts like this. There seems to be an exponential acceleration in the awakening, which is absolutely fantastic. The fearmongers are still doing their best to keep people in low vibration. I always encourage people never to watch the news. Don't watch it.
I would highly agree with that. I don't. I,
It's
you know what? Oh no, I'll do it for the naysayers. And it's the sometimes if it might be of use to you to have an overall just what's vaguely happening, but if you're unable to separate yourself and detach from the news, then I would just say just don't look at the news for a while. You don't need to.
Yes, I agree. If I happen to be somewhere where somebody has a television news comes on, because of my understanding of what's going on with that broadcast,
Mm.
I understand it to be a form of brainwashing. It's most definitely a form of propaganda.
Mm.
And if people can just get their head around the fact that it's propaganda and understanding what propaganda is, I think it was Obama who removed the law in America. There was a law in America that said newspapers and news outlets could not use propaganda. He removed that. So news stories don't have to be true. And a population that's propagandized is not an empowered populace.
No.
So knowledge is so important. It's finding alternative sources. If you are going to watch the news, watch it from different countries.
Yeah.
Watch the same piece on the Middle East from Al Jazeera, from Russia, from BBC, from NBC, from Fox. You know, have if you are obsessed, some people can get obsessed with wanting to know what's going on, and then feeling terrible about not being able to do anything about it. I mean, that
helplessness is definitely, I feel, is put into those kinds of programs. And you know, you can do a lot. You can do a lot more for the earth and humanity by working on you. You know, when people feel helpless that they can't help anyone else outside of them. But that also brings a whole host of things like pity. Like the vibration of pity is very disempowering. Like don't, you know, teach someone to fish so they can feed their families forever, not just on a one-time deal. And that's even a thing in itself. But you know, there's so much, but pick and choose.
yeah, I invite people to look at the neighbor. You know, if you want to do something, do you want to give a coffee to the homeless person? If you want to do something, do it locally, and greet people with love.
Yeah.
That in itself is a contributory factor to what's going on globally. If you're resonating with love for all, then that is a massive contribution to the human collective.
Yeah.
The resonance on the planet.
Agreed.
But the news, you see, those that would rule have learned a long time ago that one of the most successful strategies is divide and conquer, because you're usually ruling over a larger group than you are. So the divide and conquer is so easy to spot if you are looking for it. But if you're drawn into a belief that's part of a propaganda, you will then be owned by the belief, and you'll be on that side or that side.
Yeah.
It's
and you're still stuck.
the this idea of propaganda and belief, the divide and conquer, all of that. This kind of language wasn't common 10 years ago. It was around, but it was a smaller group of people. But because of technology, now the word propaganda, the collective consciousness, it's beautiful that words like this, you can say things like that in a pub, and people kind of understand what you're talking about. May not be ready to join you, but we need to have the vocabulary. We need to have the there's a posh word for it, isn't it? The taxonomy. We need the taxonomy to have the conversation. It's what was it? The knowledge creates awareness. Awareness can create understanding, and understanding helps us to be tolerant, patient, and aware of others as well as ourselves. So seeking knowledge, being okay to, again, people are trained in school not to look stupid. Don't want to look stupid. Don't ask the question. When my kids were growing up, I sent them out the door every single morning. The last words in the ear was me saying, ask lots of questions and don't believe everything they say.
I like that.
And they would just look at me. And I have two very powerful, strong women. Brilliant. As daughters. One has had 0 injections. Now, social services, these are adults now, so you can't take my children. The other one, we did do MMR, but we broke it up into 3 separate jabs because I didn't like the idea of a cocktail going into a baby. And it hurt my soul when I seen these injections go in. I regret, that's one of my few regrets is, and of course I will listen to arguments about injections, but when you put stuff in a child's body that should not be there, like mercury, whatever the argument is for having it in an injection, if you're doing multiple injections for this child, those small amounts end up big amounts. And I look forward to the day, maybe in 10 years' time, when they can do a correlation to Down syndrome and autism, and do that correlation with the uptake of vaccinations for children, and it will marry. I am so confident it will marry. Anyway, don't get me started on that. That's
yes. We want to keep it nice and neutral. Keep it neutral. On the
yes.
spaces.
Well, you could cut that out if you wish. Because it is very sensitive to a lot of people. So when I'll talk about, I'll do it. I'll be still. So if you want to cut that, the idea of divide and conquer and separation. We're in a big classroom. We're in a wonderful. I often say to people, because I'm a painful optimist. I, regardless of the situation, I see it as okay, I'm breathing, okay, I'm not hungry, got some shelter, things ain't that bad. There are people who are blind. I have sight. People can't hear. I can hear. I can hear birds sing. I can see nature. This is the other thing, gratitude. Yeah. Having gratitude is a medicine. It is the medicine for the mind, body, and spirit. If you can find a quiet space in nature or even on the tube, doesn't matter where you are, and just close your eyes and just be deeply grateful for having your senses. Just that. Legs to walk. It doesn't matter what the gratitude is. If it's coming from a deep-centered space, it's a grounding tool. It's a bit like taking your shoes and socks off and being on the grass. You get grounded with it because that type of intention of gratitude, it reconfirms your relationship with all. Yeah. You're being a human being. You've chosen to come in, whether people believe that or not. I have no evidence of it. I have a sense that I may have been here before. I have a very strong sense that something is got my back. I've been in situations which I think, okay, well, it wasn't that great, but whatever happened, I managed to. I have this belief and faith that we are more than just the physical, materialistic perception of the world. And science is being dragged back into the alchemical relationship that used to exist many eons ago, when the spirituality and science was one thing. It's separated, and I think it's because we entered the age of iron from an Indian perspective. Okay. We're coming to the midsection of the Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga is the age of humanity diving deep into its lowest possible. And the last 1,000 years have been pretty much proof of that. The masculine, let's have a war. Let's do another war. War's good business. Let's have some more war, and the ruling bodies, they're all up for that, It's
makes money.
But on the 20th of this month, the 20th of this month is the midsection of the Kali Yuga. So I think it's a 2,000-year cycle. So we go down like this, because it's circular, a bit like the Mayan calendar type thing, or the moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. So different cultures have the same notion of a changing of the age. On the 20th of this month, between the 20th and 21st, we're at the lowest point. So if we can get past the 20th without a nuclear strike, yay! It'll be good. Because we're on the ascending. We're on the. We're going to see more female leaders. We're going to see the divine feminine taking more control. We're going to see the divine masculine forming partnerships that unify the bonds between the masculine and the feminine. Yeah. I can't tell you how optimistic I am. And it may look dire, but it's when you have a change of management, if you have a group of managers who've just been sacked for incompetence or fraud or whatever it is, they might sabotage you through a few things on the way out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we've got a change of management on the planet. There is a change of management, and the demonic energies are going to dissipate. They're not going to go away, because 3D is designed to be yin yang, positive, negative. It's the classroom. When we get to our fourth and fifth and higher dimensions, the vibration is higher and there's less negative. But we're here. So when I was younger, this is so I had this notion that I was going to save the world, right? So I was going to find a white steed and a big sword, and I was just going to save the world. And then I woke up one morning. I thought, you arrogant shit. It's not your business. It's your job to save you. So I was externalizing. It was all out there. The problems were all out there. And that's when I began the journey of looking in here and finding the bliss in here, finding the joy, finding the unification, and being a contributing factor. So I decided that this is the 3 sleeps that I spoke about, but we'll come to later. What I concluded, I became aware. I became the observer of me. And it's a beautiful place to be, because it's acknowledging fully and completely the spiritual you. The spiritual me is here, and I am the carrier of the light and the shadow. I carry the both. So when I was younger, I was the light, going to vanquish the shadow, going to destroy it. There'll only be one. And it's not possible on this 3D plane.
Not in this universe.
Without the shadow, there can be no light. So we can't have happiness without sadness. It wouldn't exist. There would just be this flat plateau of contentment, perhaps. Maybe that's why this place was created. Maybe they got bored and they needed to have some action. Maybe this is the Alton Towers of the higher dimensions. So
yeah, I like that. The Alton Towers, the physical Alton Towers for the etherical.
Yes, because some of the rides can be frightening, right?
It's true.
And there can be overindulgence, and there can be long waits and queues. So what I decided is that I'm the carrier of the shadow and the light, and my job is to conclude this trip, this journey, and have those, and bring with me the shadows so that I rise it up, bring it back home. So as opposed to being at war externally or internally.
Yeah.
So my choice was to unify the shadow within. I hear it. Okay, you want to, and I advise people. I said, you can listen to it, have the conversation with it, but don't let it drive the bus.
Witness
if you want it to drive the bus, be prepared for a treacherous journey, right? And again, people do make these choices. And here's where the complexity of the idea of karma and these cycles of, are we trapped deliberately? Or is that a learning process? The Buddhists say that there's 7 stages. You have to come back so many times. And each time you learn a lesson and you progress and so on. And that's that. I think what might be true is that they're all true because we create realities. And because there's an infinite number of possibilities. So if we go to the quantum physics idea that there's multiple timelines, and this is nothing more than a hologram created by the observer, which is what they concluded. So if you look at an experiment, you affect it by looking at it. I find that brilliant. I love that. And I love this notion of telekinesis and telepathy. And I think we're scratching the surface, but it's wonderful because we're getting back, because it's exponential. It's not this long, drawn-out 1,000-year journey. I've found time speeding up. I think, wow, that went quick.
And getting more productive, I found recently. I
think
a week in a day.
Yeah. It's I love it. It's fascinating times. So, for example, if you were to examine your beliefs, would you say that they're fixed? Would you say that you have firm beliefs about X or Y or Z?
No, I stripped back. I stripped back a lot of beliefs, new and old. Because I'm writing about this in my book right now. Actually, I was on a quest to find myself, but I was always seeking it outside of myself. But until I really started the journey going inwards, that was when the real change happened. That was when the real fulfillment and the transformation happened, because no one can love you more than when you fully love yourself as a complete overfilling cup, and you've got that connection to source, that when you do then meet or even just colleagues or friends that resonate the same as you, you have a love bar and it's set, and you won't take healthy boundaries certain behaviors. You just won't take it anymore. You might have before, due to beliefs or conditioning or traumas that had been unprocessed and unhealed. But I have found over time, and the more I find myself and the more I love myself unconditionally, the better my life is in every possible way. Yeah.
Yeah, it comes up in readings when people want to know if the soulmate is coming, and it invariably ends up with the conversation along the lines of, I always ask questions, before we get to the nitty gritty. And one of my questions is, do you love yourself? And you see sometimes awkwardness or uncomfortableness because they don't want to answer. And I tend to follow it up. I don't demand an answer, but I tend to follow it up with, if you don't love yourself, you're not going to find that kind of love, because if you're seeking someone to fill that void of love, they can't. It's impossible. You'll end up in you don't love me enough. Why don't you love me some more? You should love me more. And that tends to put strain on a relationship. And it tends to signal that relationship will fragment. So when you love yourself, you no longer need, and that's the key word, need. You don't need the love from another. You can enjoy the love from another. And it's finding this maturity of understanding that is an individual. Now, based on our securities and insecurities, we can demand behavior from them in terms of, well, you need to be in at 9 o'clock every night, or ridiculous demands.
Conditions, yeah.
And this is not love. This is ownership. And you can't own another person.
No.
And it's being vulnerable enough to know that they might find another love. And if they do, and you truly have love for them, you will wish them well. Now, people will listen to this and they'll be going, what a load of rubbish. That's nonsense. Trust me, it's not easy. But if you're centered and you know that you're bright, powerful, and beautiful, you will be at peace with that. Obviously, if somebody makes you feel good when you're in their presence, you want more of that. But then, if you're not finding that within yourself, maybe there's a question to be asked.
Yeah.
But it's great, if I love being around people who are funny, who see the world as mad as I do, who can laugh at the most ridiculous thing. And that gives me joy, because it reminds me that I'm not completely insane. So it's, because we're constantly looking for this validation of my thought processes in keeping with sanity, whatever that is. So yes, it's I'm a work in progress, and I will be until my last breath. I love the notion of the Arabian carpets have a deliberate flaw. They make one knot, so a Persian rug will never be perfect. There's one knot that's deliberately, intentionally flawed, because only God is perfect. Now, I'm not a huge fan of using the word God. I feel more comfortable with source, or the higher consciousness, or the super intelligent. But I'm okay with people using it if that's what they need to understand that there is more.
Yes.
The important thing for me about that is, if this person who uses the term God sees themselves here, and God's this white bearded vengeful bugger who's going to send them to a fiery pit, if that's the relationship they have, then they're abdicating their sovereignty, they're abdicating their brightness, their powerfulness, and their beauty. Now, some people may find peace in that because it's a good place to hide. A lot of people are frightened to be powerful.
Yeah.
A lot of people are frightened to be beautiful. It's
that can also be not only insecurity and not feeling confidence or having low self-esteem in this lifetime, but it could be also from past lives as well. And the experiences that I have had and the research that I've done and observed is that your challenges will continue to repeat in this lifetime or into the next lifetime, and even from past lifetimes into this lifetime. And that's why it's really important to be really honest with yourself. Be honest when fears come up. I find it's a bit like an iceberg. You know, you get a trigger for one thing, but if you really start digging around and asking questions to yourself, you'll get a completely just a little bit, you know, like a step off away from what the initial outburst of emotion or reaction was. And then you get to like oh, okay, from a higher perspective, this is actually the situation that's going on. And so, and it is really important to have those, you know, address your fears, address the pains, address the suffering, transform it, and then you no longer have to be in that pain and suffering at any time in your life or any future lifetimes. And you can also heal your past lives as well. I do future life progression, so I can do past, present, future, accessing and being able to.
It can be a scary place for people to once, you know, like you talk about. I like the analogy of the iceberg. You know, if they find the tip of it and then they realize, oh my God, it can be.
It can feel overwhelming.
Everyone's unique, and we operate at a different pace. We have different thresholds of pain, tolerance, shock. Everyone's unique, and I approach people in my readings this way, as I see in front of me a unique individual who is currently a mystery. And they will divulge as much as they want to divulge. I will intuit as much as I'm invited to intuit, because I'm a big believer that people, I've done readings where people are just shut. They don't want, it's so somebody's dragged them to a reading for their birthday or whatever, and they don't want to be there, you know.
Yeah.
So but I honor it. I respect it, you know. And we'll end up having a flippant conversation about something and just playing, let's throw some cards about something ridiculous or frivolous if you don't want to explore, if you're not ready. And it's that ability to be gentle with people, to appreciate. And this is where the fixer mentality can end up being in conflict or clashing, because the person can see what might benefit them and gets, you should do this, you must do that. If you do this, you'll have this, and you'll be skipping. But it has to be at the pace of the person that you wish to be of service to. And that's the key word, being of service to, not being the sergeant major, not being the I know best. It's being humble enough to respect where they are. And I always send people away with the notion that, you know, you're bright, powerful, and beautiful. You always have been, and you always will be. So I love to plant seeds. I'm okay with planting seeds, because human beings are great.
Yeah.
You have seed planting strategies.
Yes. No, I was actually just going to say you know, that peace, the compassion, the care, the gentleness that you have with the people that you work with, like, and that's something that everyone could start practicing and adopting in their life. You don't have to just be a healer or a card reader to do these things. Like, you can really take what resonates and just do a little bit every day. And it's amazing how much your world will shift and change just by consistently showing up for yourself at whatever pace you want to be at and whatever your focus is. But that's a real sure way to heal the relationship to yourself, and then you'll have healthy relationships for that. And anyone that can't match that bar, that height that you set, then you know maybe I'm gonna just have a bit of space from them on a like semi-permanent basis or a permanent basis.
And it is important to allow people to work at their pace. I do think it's equally important to test that water to see if a little nudge, and be prepared to pull back. Because I think depending on how the person's presenting, if they're presenting themselves as in the role of the child and sees you as the parent, there's a way of bringing that back up to equilibrium. So it's two adults.
Yeah.
And it's, so this takes me nicely to the 3 sleeps that I wanted to speak about. So I was a Reiki practitioner for many years in London, and people would come and I would do the plumbing, clear some blockages, and off they'd go and they'd be happy. And they'd come back 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, and I'd go, So these questions would start forming. I'm thinking, well, this person doesn't want to be well. And I just intuit that is the situation. So I thought, okay, so if I'm going to be of service, because this is more for me, what I felt, if I allowed them to continue doing this, knowing what I know, that they don't want to be well, that would be exploitation. And I couldn't, it wouldn't sit with me. It doesn't. So I decided a change of strategy. So I decided anybody who comes for Reiki, I'm going to have an interview beforehand, and I'm going to ask a question that I'm going to require an answer to. And the question was, why do you want to be well? So using the word being well, and why did they want that? Because a practitioner can build up a symbiotic relationship where the client becomes dependent. And it's the responsibility of the practitioner, if they have honor and integrity and see this person as bright, powerful, and beautiful as an equal, then it's incumbent on them to do whatever it takes to elevate this person. So I would say to them, listen, you don't have to answer today. Have a think. And what would happen is people would go away and they'd never come back. So I lose loads of clients. But it was okay because I dropped a seed. Now, if they go to another Reiki practitioner, that question's in their head, even if the other practitioner doesn't ask it.
Yeah.
So shortly after that, I don't know where it came from. It may have been, I don't know where it came from. So I came up with the 3 sleeps. And I offer this to the world now, free of charge. And I offer every practitioner to utilize it whenever they can. And I call it the 3 sleeps because I understand that we, human beings, we are the best procrastinators ever. We can find a million things to do before the things we need to do. I was guilty of it when I was at uni, lastminute.com on that piece of work. And I have a phrase which is, it's not time to clean under the fridge. People, you never clean under your fridge, but I need to do that. So we find loads of ways. So I called it the 3 sleeps because the exercises are done over 3 nights. Nobody's done it over 3 nights. It's done when your head's on the pillow. You've brushed your teeth, you've been to the toilet. And if you want to procrastinate and go to the toilet half a dozen times, there's only so many times you can go to the toilet. And then you're stuck with either admitting you don't want to do it or attempting to do it. And people would come back to me and say, Bob, I keep falling asleep. I said, fantastic. I've invented a cure for insomnia. This is great. So I never put pressure on them. I said, it might take 3 nights, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, 3 decades, 3 lifetimes. It doesn't matter. Don't give yourself a hard time. So this is seed planting. This is part of the waking the flower within in here and in here. So the first night's sleep, and I called it the foundation of well-being. I think for any, it's also the 3 exercises are the wonderful cornerstones of self-love.
Mm.
So it's the foundation of well-being because it helps clear blockages. It helps realign the individual in terms of what they think they are.
Mm.
So let's go into it. So the first night's sleep is in two parts. Your head's on the pillow, you lie, it doesn't matter if someone's next to you, it doesn't matter. You could, I always prefer things spoken, but if somebody's next to you, this one doesn't require speaking because what you're doing is you're forgiving everything and everyone this lifetime and every other lifetime.
Mm.
And I use thing very deliberately because it's the demons, the angels, the gods, goddesses, it's everything that's not seen.
Mm.
You forgive them, all of them. And you forgive everyone this lifetime, every other lifetime, even if you don't believe in incarnation. I say, people, just imagine a starting point. Time began somewhere, and just allow yourself to flow down it, and you forgive everything and everyone. The second half is you forgive yourself for everything you can and cannot remember this lifetime and every other lifetime. Now, this is addressing the trauma things where we've locked stuff away. And the belief that you're genuinely forgiving has to come from the heart. It has to be a heartfelt forgiveness.
Mm.
People would say, well, I can forgive everyone except Uncle Tommy. I said, no, it has to be everyone. The forgiveness isn't so much for them as for you. So this second night, so this is not easy. This is a big ask, right? But what a wonderful act of self-love to forgive yourself for everything you can and cannot remember this lifetime and every other lifetime. That's a beautiful act of self-love.
Mm.
And letting go of the chains that people have on you, whether it's resentment, hate, anger, frustration at someone else.
Mm.
And when you forgive them, those chains go.
Yeah.
They go. The second night's sleep, same thing, teeth, toilet, lights out, head on pillow. And you imagine floating out of your body about 6 feet above yourself.
Mm.
And you're just a mirror image of yourself. And people don't fret if you think you're going to float off into, if you're astral projecting, you're connected, you can go back like that. It's not a problem. So you look down and you look at all the shadow, all the negative. What's the worst I've been? And you have a little think about what's the worst you've been in terms of assessing.
Mm.
I don't like the word judging, assessing, whether it was productive or constructive or destructive. And you look at that, and then you have another question to yourself: what's the worst I could be? Not a pleasant place to have a poke around in, but an important place to have a poke around in. What's the
Mm.
worst I could be? And then you absorb that, and it will be a little uncomfortable. And then you look down again at you lying on the bed, and you look at all the light and beauty inside. What's the best I've been? And you explore that. And you ask yourself, what's the best I could be? And when I was doing the exercise for myself, I thought, could I sit on a rock as a monk my whole life and just pray for the world? And I thought, no, I couldn't do that. That's not my bag. I need to be in and amongst. That's my role. And so when you look at what's the best I can be, don't set yourself up for a fall by thinking you should be Mother Teresa or whoever. Just what's the best I could be?
Mm.
Be gentle with it. Now, here's the thing about that exercise. Because you have been looking at you and looking at the shadow and the light, unbeknownst to you, you've now adopted the spiritual perspective of knowing that you're not the shadow or the light. You're all. You're the trilogy, or all three. We formed a triangle.
Mm.
And some people see a sword, a point at the third eye here and the hilt at the other. And this realization that you are a spiritual being and you're unifying the shadow and the light.
Mm.
So it's not easy. But once this is heard, once seeds planted, and for me, that's the amusing bit, because if people don't ever do it, they'll know who they are. They will know who they are. Now, the third night's sleep is a mantra, and it should be spoken because there's a resonance and tone in your voice.
Mm.
And we can spot when we're bullshitting ourselves, right? When we're not being honorable to ourselves.
Mm.
So it's great if you can speak it, because it you're sending it out. So the affirmation is, you say, I'm a bright, powerful, beautiful human being. I always have been, and I always will be until my last breath. But sometimes I may choose not to be, and it's okay. Because my power resides in my ability to choose. And you say that 3 times. And it's, again, this sense of being gentle. It's not this sort of sudden, we become these light beings. And for some, that may happen. But somebody who's on a heavy baggage trip, on the second or third trip around, it may just need a little more gentleness. But once that notion of forgiveness and acknowledging that you're shadow and light, so you're no longer in this position to go, it's your fault, you made me do it. It's our reaction rather than response.
Yeah.
Is if we can be present to the fact that we're reacting and not responding, it's again, it's healthy. It's okay to react as long as you're being present. It may be an hour later, you go, shit, that was a shit way to react. Next time, it'll be half an hour. Next time, 10 minutes.
It's true.
And it's being gentle. So the 3 sleeps for me are the foundation of wellness, which means if a person isn't in a state of forgiveness, how can they be well?
Mm.
And this is, again, the mind working in collaboration with the spirit, the heart, the soul, the body. And there's something about the act of forgiveness that is incredibly powerful.
Mm.
If a person hasn't forgiven themselves, whether they know it or not, for something they can or cannot remember, they will make sure they get ulcers, abscess, cancers, broken bones. They will create the reality to make sure that they honor the justice that they hold inside.
Yeah.
I deserve it, you know. And if you're in that space, then the best healer in the world isn't going to make you better until you decide, yeah, I'm going to take ownership. Going to take ownership. And then you can visit a practitioner, you can visit a counselor, you can visit a Reiki practitioner, any kind of practitioner. You'll be in a wonderful, ready state to have the realignment, to have, the physicality addressed, the mental. So that is my gift to the world. Use it or ignore it. It doesn't matter. But if you've heard it, sorry, the seeds are planted. So it's
wonderful. And what I was feeling to say was, it creates a really strong foundation for when you're able to take that first step, see where your co-creation of the situation was, and take responsibility.
Yeah.
Then, as you go on your path, there will be times when you seek the guidance of a practitioner of whatever modality that you need in that moment, just to help you either like shift your frequency or just help you see what you're struggling to see, and help
absolutely
find a path of resolution. And I think that's what most people are looking for in their lives, and also, listening to this podcast because they want more solutions than problems in their world. And they're ready to take that next step of like, if I've got absolute awareness of me and my reality, then I can really guide my soul, guide my reality in life in the direction that I want to live in.
Yes, and there is real value in seeing the right person at the right time. But if you're in that wonderful, solid foundation of self-love and understanding that the thoughts that you hear in your head aren't necessarily demons that are going to take you over. They're just your shadow wanting to be mischievous, giving you an opportunity to learn. So, for example, if somebody's in that state of self-love, but they may have a weight issue, go and see a dietitian, go and see a counselor.
Yeah.
But because you're in that place of self-love, you'll be listening in a very different way.
Yeah.
Equally, you'll be hearing the guidance and the advice. So that's the 3 sleeps.
Thank you, Bob. That was wonderful. How can people find you? How can people contact you? And have you got any special offers or services that you'd like to share today?
The easiest way is my website, which is Current Energies, one word, currentenergies.co.uk. You can drop a message on the website through the online form, or my phone number's on there. You can text me or you can email me. And it's got a booking system as well. I've got a couple of other readers on there who, in fact, if there are any readers who want to take advantage, I'm about to launch Index, Practitioner's Index.
Nice.
So it's going to be a system that allows practitioners who don't want to be bothering with building websites and stuff like that, but want to take online bookings and online payments and have some way of managing their diary.
Yeah.
So the system allows people to say, I work Mondays and Thursdays only. I work from this time to that time. And people, when they click on them, they'll be able to book that slot, pay. None of the money comes to the website. It goes straight to them, but there would be an annual fee. But I'm going to give the first 300 practitioners a lifetime subscription.
Wonderful.
So as a way of launching it. But I will come back to you on another time for that launch.
Yes, please do. Yeah, please do. Always love to have you back, and it's always fabulous speaking with you. And thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge and nuggets and seeds today. And I'm sure they will land where they are meant to land, and
absolutely
new growth where it's meant to as well.
Well, absolutely lovely catching up with you, Jennifer, and good luck with the podcast, and I shall promote it wherever I can.
Oh, thank you, Bob. Much appreciated. Okay. I look forward to all of us finding our people and, finding our tribe, and for the services that we need at those unique junction points on our journeys and our paths. So I'm excited for everyone who connects to this and is looking forward to the next step in life in a positive and constructive, healthy way. Okay. Well, lovely. Thank you so much. And be sure to like, share, subscribe, and contribute to this kind of collection of solutions, and share it to your friends if any of these resonate with you.
Share your beliefs.
Yeah. So thanks very much, and see you in the next episode.
See you in the next one. Bye.
Bye for now.